today we're going to talk about drop the weight. Today is part 2. Last week we talked about drop the weight, and what that was about, in summary, was unforgiveness. It was how unforgiveness can hold us down and how it can keep us from achieving really what we're meant to achieve in our life. So we made our list of people that we needed to forgive and people that we needed for them to forgive us. And then we tore that up. We let it go after we released it. So today, what we're going to talk about in the second part is related. It's similar, it's not the same, but it is, and it can be related. Today we're going to talk about trauma and how trauma can really affect us. And I know that we all know people that go through life, and they go through life with some type of traumatic event that has happened, and they never get over it. They hold on to it. They just can't just let go. It's such pain, and it's such a deep wound. And really, that can keep them from living the life they were meant to live. And we don't want that. We want everybody to have a good life. You know what? Bad things do happen, and they happen to good people. And even though that's horrible, we've all had things that have happened to us that we have to release. So when I say traumatic event, just let's define it. It's just some type of a life-altering event that affects us in a negative way. It wounds us. It wounds us really deep. It can be physical, that impacts us emotionally and spiritually, but really on a deeper level. So I would say that would affect our very being, our very core of who and what we are. So as we're going through all this, we are growing, and that's part of this dropping the weight, dropping dead weight, and growth can be uncomfortable. This past week, I had talked last week about how every so often I will go through and I will write my list of things that were events, and I've done this one before too, and people that I need to forgive and things that I need to really move past and reconcile. And actually, my husband and I had really a great conversation last night, and part of it started out uncomfortable and awkward, but there were some things some past hurts that we both had experienced, and we got it out. We did it in a very adult-like way. We discussed it. We asked the other one to forgive us, and we're moving forward because we don't want anything, tying us down and hindering us from the good things that are ahead of us. And that's what I want for y'all. So moving past unforgiveness, we're going to move into trauma. We're going to talk about that. So that we are not walking around with that rooted and grounded in us, let's go over some different things that maybe we need to be aware of, because some events are suppressed so deep that we kind of forget that they're there until something happens. And there will be something happen. It can even be a song. It can be a scent that can stir this horrible memory up in us. And so traumatic events are things like the loss of a child. And I have friends that have lost children at young ages, small children. It would be a horrible thing to have to ever experience. It can be the sudden death of a spouse. I had a friend that lost her husband. She lost her husband about a week ago. It's going to take a while for her to I won't say get over. You never get over it, but move past the pain of it. As we get older in life, we lose parents. And even though as we get older, we know it's going to happen, we're never really ready, are we, to say goodbye to our mom or our daddy? Just, it's still something that we have to deal with. And I've lost both of my parents. And the way that they passed away, we were prepared for it as best we could be. Still, I miss my parents, both of them, over the holidays. I miss my daddy cooking at Thanksgiving and miss going to see them for Christmas Eve, which is what we always celebrated. But the hurt is not there. It's not there like it was, not like when it first happened. Divorce can cause a traumatic event. Now, also, you could think of that as kind of forgiveness, unforgiveness in there. And sometimes, yeah, it's related, but when someone goes through divorce, not only do they lose that spouse, but their life changes. And I went through divorce and my life changed drastically. I moved, for one, and the other thing is my whole circle of people just changed. I had married friends, and all of a sudden now I don't have married friends. I have other friends, cousins, and people that I was able to, or really people that really took me under their wing and just loved on me during that process. So, financial. People go through things financially. I've been through things that really did hurt me financially. In 2008, 2009 was a very traumatic time for our family. Our business, we had two, and we thought at the time that we were diversified, but you know what, our baskets weren't totally separate. They sort of both hinged on the housing industry, the housing market, so it really impacted us. And as we went through it, we were in a survival mode, but it also hurt us. It changed everything. It was to some degree humiliating when you go through something like that. It was kind of a mourning, a sad, depressing, when there are certain things you can't do and you have to come up with creative ways to take vacations, which we did. We made it through, but there are things that I need to deal with, and I am working on that. I'm still working on that to make sure that I get through and get over. Because we always are going to have memories of these things. So I'm not talking about just totally forgetting it. Because if it's traumatic enough, we're not going to forget it. But with that memory, if we can do something to change the pain so that we don't feel the pain and the hurt or bitterness or whatever it brings, that's what we want to talk about today. Some people recently have gone through the loss of a home. Because I was thinking about having to move, how difficult. Moving is just not anything I really want to do. But I think about people that lost their homes during the tornadoes that came through, like Kentucky, Alabama. I mean, they had some very serious damage. It totally obliterated, the entire neighborhood. So those are traumatic events. They've lost all their family photos, their clothing. Hello. And it's something that will not easily or quickly be resolved for them. It's something they're going to have to work through. So I thought about, so we have a traumatic event. We have something that's life-altering. It changes. It hurts us. And sometimes, yes, it can almost paralyze us because of whatever it is. It could be even abusive type situations. And I do want to give one example too. I thought about this, and I think there are women that can relate to this in some form or fashion. When I was a small child, I would say, I remember particularly around 8 years old, I was just discussing this with my husband yesterday when we were talking about forgiveness. I remember being at the bank drive-through, all right? Now, I'm 8 years old. I'm small, but I'm in the front seat with my mother. She's gone to make a deposit at our normal little small-town bank, and she's doing whatever she's having to do. She's probably even making some type of a payment as she's doing it, because she did that at the bank. They did that back then. And the teller said, "When are you going to start making payments on this note?" And my mother said, "What note? What are you talking about?" And then you could see the teller's eyes were like, well. And then she wrote something down and handed it to my mother on a slip of paper. And come to find out, my father had gone out and he had bought some farm equipment that was very expensive, but it was during a time that we did not have any surplus. And she was struggling just to buy groceries. and he had gone out and done this behind her back and did not tell her. See, I remember that, and that affects me. Even today, it affects me. My husband has a business. It sometimes has affected us and things that he has purchased. Because what do you think I thought? Well, I thought, this is what my father went out and did, and he didn't think it through. Maybe my husband's not thinking it through. Or maybe we're going to lose stuff. Or maybe they're going to come repossess it. Or maybe we're not going to have enough money for groceries. Or do you see how you can kind of go down that road if we're not careful? And we can jump to conclusions and we can make assumptions that really are just based on these events that have happened to us in our lives. So another particular time I was thinking too was, and I know some of you can relate to this, and I hate that, but but when I was, again, it was somewhere around 8 years old. It seemed like a lot of things happened right during this time period. My father got angry. I don't even know why, but he would get angry at times, and you wouldn't even know why. There didn't have to be a reason, and he wasn't drinking. He didn't have to be drinking. He loaded us up. There was my mother, and there was the 3 children. He loaded us up and took us to my grandmother's and dropped us off and just said bye. Like, all right, what are we supposed to do? He took us, uprooted us from our home, and all of a sudden he doesn't want us. It's kind of like people dropping off stray dogs. That's the way it felt. And it has taken me some time to deal with that. And to not only forgive my father now, because I have forgiven him, but that event is there. I will always remember that. I just have to work not to assume and to prejudge others based on that type of an occurrence, a situation, and I have to allow myself to be healed from that. So let's get to that. So how do we get healed? What do we do to move past it? And I do want to say this too, I'm not a professional. I'm only giving tips on things that I've done, things that I've worked through and overcome. That's all I can say. It's just what I've gone through that I just want to be able to help others to overcome and get through. And not waste life, not waste precious moments stuck in the past with that weighing us down. Because we're about to move into 2022. It's right here. And I want this to be the best year yet for y'all. So steps to healing, this is just a couple tips. The first thing is acknowledge it. Do an evaluation. We need to take evaluations and do that every so often. Write down some things that we have gone through. Just go back and you know what? They will, just like the unforgiveness that we talked about last week, they will begin to come up. Write it down, whatever that is, whatever the hurt is. And write it and keep this paper where other eyes cannot see it. It's nobody's business to see this, just yours. And this is only for the sake of your healing. But acknowledge it. Write it down on your paper. And just keep writing however long it takes you to write your list. Do that. When we're going through whatever it is, and there's so many different things that we do have to deal with, and unfortunately sometimes it's layered. I can remember going through the financial downturn in 2008. At the same time, I was losing my father. He was dying. And I had one of my children was going through some behavioral issues at school. So I would drop that child off at school, and I'd have to turn around sometimes an hour later and go pick that child back up. And it was all happening at the same time. So how do we survive? How do we get through it? Well, we do have to mourn, depending on what it is. There is a time, not necessarily feel sorry for ourselves, but to be sorry that whatever happened, happened. It happened. It's okay to be sad. It's just not okay to stay there. But there's a time. And depending on what happened, that mourning season could be short. It could be long. And sometimes it is the intensity of our grief. Some people are able to release it. They mourn it and they cry and they sob and they get it out. Others hold on to it a little bit longer, and they have to process it differently. And everybody's different, and that's okay. But mourn. Take your time to mourn. It is okay to get therapy. Sometimes that has become sort of taboo. Like there's something wrong with you, or you're weak or something if you have to do that. But You know what? If your car needs to be worked on, you take it somewhere and they work on it, right? If your house needs maintenance, you get an expert to do that. So what is wrong with getting someone to walk you through something that has injured you emotionally, very deeply? There's nothing wrong with it. Find somebody, get recommendations. Go and talk to somebody that knows how to help you walk through this, because that's what you got to do. You just got to walk through it, and you will. You will get through it. But get a professional. Release that hurt, however you have to release it. People are different. Again, like I was saying, mourning. Some people like to write. Some people like to maybe even exercise. Whatever. Journal. Cry. Release it. And then receive. Allow yourself to live again, hope again, feel. I know that there was a time in my life I'd gone through some hurts. I actually went through a divorce. I became very cold. I became very hardened. We don't ever want to get to that point, because when you become hard like that, you can't feel hurt, but you can't feel good either. You can't feel happiness and joy and love. And so we don't want to shut those things out. So we have to be able to receive. And to receive things, sometimes we have to be vulnerable. Some other things is we have to, when things are intense, because there are things that are intense that we do go through, we have to take it moment by moment and get through the moment. Then the hour, right? And then the day. But we will get through it. My mother used to have this saying, she would quote, and I know you've probably heard it, but it is so true, "This too shall pass." And yes, it will. It's just, that sounds so good, and it sounds so simple, but it's not easy. It's not easy living in the between when you're trying to get from this point to this point, from the hurt to the place where you can feel and love and enjoy again, right? So another thing is, be careful. We need to do this anyway. We all need to be more careful who we share with. When we are sharing things, not everybody needs to know what we're going through, because some people, for one thing, they're in their own mess and they can't give us advice to get out of what we're going through, because they can't even get out of what they're going through. And plus, there are things that are very personal and very intimate that we would not want spread around and talked about. So be very careful who you do share with. And that's why sometimes it is good to see a professional. But we do need to talk, and we need to be able to get it out. So if that's a very small inner circle that you have, if it is a therapist, if it's a pastor, whoever, but somebody that you can trust, you know you can go to them and trust, and you know they will keep it in confidence. That's good. Be patient with yourself as you work through this, and realize that, even if you say, I'm going to go and see a therapist for 2 or 3 weeks, or 2 or 3 months, or whatever it is, that doesn't mean that you're going to be over this in that time period. There may still be a lot of pain, just depending on how deep it is, how rooted it is. Just be patient with yourself. One thing that we did during the 2008-2009, the housing market, whatever, bubble burst, collapse, whatever you want to call it, we laughed. We found a way to laugh. We found a way to find something good in it. Find the silver lining. Look for the funny in everything. We had a particular movie that we watched. It was fun with Dick and Jane. And we watched that thing. I think we watched it over 100 times, because it was sort of a similar situation. We never resorted to stealing or anything, which they did in the movie, but it just kept us laughing. And laughter does. Laughter will help you. Well, it will lift your spirits. So find some way, whatever you think is funny. We go on YouTube, and I'm going to tell you, you don't even have to watch a funny movie. You can just go watch real life sometimes. There's some crazy stuff out there. I like to watch bloopers. Watch things and just laugh. You will just feel better after you do that. We must stop blaming ourselves. Sometimes we do blame ourselves for whatever has happened, like maybe a divorce. We blame ourselves over and over. Well, I could have done this better. I could have done this differently. Or I should have been like this. I should have been this way. You know what? It's over. It's done. It's behind. It's time to, if there's something that we need to change now, we need to change ourselves. We need to grow. But let's stop blaming ourselves, and let's embrace ourselves, and let's learn to love ourselves. I'm 56, and I'm just learning to love myself, learning to love things about me. And why am I having to do that? Where did that come from? Why is that even an issue? And why is that a struggle? But it is. Sometimes we just don't like ourselves very much. It's not even because we're bad. Really, I don't know. I think we're our own worst critic. Let's stop being critical of ourselves. Let's find the good things about ourselves and love ourselves and cheer ourselves on. Surround ourselves by positive people. Now, this is not necessarily meaning that these are the people that you're confiding in. No, I mean, if there's some positive groups that you can become involved with, hey, go and hang around these people. If these people are uplifting, they're moving forward, they're speaking forward, go and hang out with these people. That'll make you laugh. That'll make you feel better. Sometimes when we get alone, it gives us too much time to think, too much time to focus on the negative. So it's great to get out and do some things, do some fun things, have some fun. One thing I like to do, and it's important to me, which is part of the reason I started this group, Ammirata, is because I do want to become a woman that I can admire. And I thought about all the people that I admired, and I thought, I want to become somebody that I can admire. I just know I need to do a little work on myself. Well, if we can find a way to help others overcome what we have gone through, don't you think that's a great way to heal too? If you learn a few things along the way and you can share it, whatever it is. I know sometimes I've had a couple of miscarriages, and I went through infertility, and I've been able to encourage other women and men that they're going through that, because this too shall pass. I have 2 beautiful children, and I'm very grateful. And I'm very grateful that I went through what I went through, not necessarily the miscarriage or anything like that, but it made me appreciate them. It made me appreciate my pregnancy. It's made me appreciate just life, and life is a miracle. So it's made me appreciate that. So if I can help others overcome something that I have gone through, I feel like I kind of got double for my trouble. That's the way I feel. Be careful the words that we speak. Our words are powerful because we're speaking it and we're coming into agreement with it. So if we want to overcome something, let's not speak how we're defeated. Let's speak positive, because we're hearing that, and eventually it's going to take root. There's power. And I know I have examples where I have used this, I have done this, not only with myself, but with my children. It's very powerful. If we say something enough, it will become reality. So we must be very, very careful what we say. So I would rather speak things about being prosperous, being healthy, that I'm going to have a great year, that I'm going to take care of myself, I'm going to love others, I'm going to be a better wife, a better mother, a better friend. I just want to always be saying things that are positive. Now, does that mean that I'm always saying that? Sometimes I do mess up. I have to step back and say, okay, I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have texted that. I'm sorry I text that. Forgive me. But let's get into the habit of speaking and thinking positive. And really, it takes an effort. It takes an effort to bring ourselves out of a negative mindset. And it's easy to get in. I'm not saying that sometimes you don't have a reason to be sad, because you do have a reason at times. We have to experience it, but we got to get past it. We got to get over it. So that's I want to sum today up. I want your life to be wonderful. I want 2022 to be great. I want you to overcome any sort of injury that you've had to your spirit. And if you would, take your paper, make your list of what things have hurt you, and write it down, and then release it. Tear it up or burn it, if you have a way to burn it, and move forward in your life, because 2022 is going to be great. I want it to be great for you. I know it's going to be great. Next week, we are going to talk about Drop the Weight, Part 3. And it's going to be a great week. We're going to talk about how to stay organized and to get some things off our list that we've been procrastinating about, that are also dead weight. They're dragging us down. I'm doing this with you. So until next time, this is Melanie Young. I'm excited for 2022, and I can't wait to see you out here next Tuesday.